Welcome all, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about the anatomy of an object. Over this whole lesson we're going to make sure that we cover a couple topics, one of them being classes versus objects, a very important definition to know, as well as relevant terms that will be pertinent to know going forward in further lessons, as well as any experience you have with OOP in the future. And then on top of that, constructors, a very special function method, we'll learn about that later, that will be key to understanding how the interaction goes from class to object. We have this diagram on the right filled with question marks, and by the end of this lesson, we will do our best to fill in all the spots. So I hope you pay attention. The first step on our lesson will be classes. Classes are very important. But as with many things, I'm going to start with the official definition. A class is an extensible code program template for creating objects. What is a code program template? So I wrote my own definition here. And a class is just a definition of an object, used for instantiation later on. But before we talk about what that means exactly, let's talk about some of the members of a class. We have the class name, the way that we refer to it when we actually are using it. Then we have attributes or fields, which are exactly as an attribute is. It's something that describes the information that's going to be held by the object created from this class. And then we also have methods. Methods are very important because they define how that information is going to be manipulated, changed, deleted, etc. by itself or other objects along its lifespan. Moving from there, we have objects. Now, I used object in my definition of class, so it's kind of important to understand what an object is as well. The official definition refers to a particular instance of a class where an object can be a combination of variables, functions, and data structures. My definition, it's an instance of a class. It's very short and quick, and it's using terminology that we should know, but it's very important to understand that these two go hand in hand. Without a class, an object is not going to be formed, and without an object, the class kind of has no meaning. Why have a definition of something that will never exist? So let's talk about the ways that we describe the members of an object. We have the object reference, just some way of knowing this is our object, sometimes described as its place in memory, other times referred to as a variable that we have in our code holding the reference to our object. Then we have state or data. We were speaking about in our definition of classes of where it's going to be held. An object is the real-life example of this class holding that data in some form and updating its state as it goes forward. And the way that it updates it is by listening to its code, defining its behavior. These two work together to make it so that an object is able to interact in an environment appropriately. And then right here in the middle, we have this very special part of an object, which is its constructor, defined in the class but used in a particular time. Constructors. Just having this arrow doesn't really mean a lot, but let's go ahead and try and cover the official definition of a constructor. It is a special type of subroutine called to create an object. It prepares the new object for use, often accepting arguments that the constructor uses to set required member variables. Okay, that was long-winded. Let's see what mine was. A special method that executes right before the new keyword, which I'll cover in a second, meant to set the initial state of the object. So state and object were used previously. So it's important to understand that the constructor is called right after the object has its place in memory. And this allows the developer, the programmer, to initiate how the object is going to start, whether it be it will start with a certain ID or have a certain input that it will then transform as it goes along, but This is just a way for on creation to take something from the class and to stuff it into our object so that we know that the starting state is at a certain point. So thus our constructor represents this arrow. And now I have a little exercise for you. I've copied down here the diagram I made earlier, but I've given you a word bank of important terminology that we've covered over the previous slides. Feel free to pause and try to fill in the blanks, and once you've gotten all your answers in, unpause and we'll walk through them together. Good luck. And welcome back. I hope you got all your answers in and you're ready to walk through them together as I define each one of them one last time to make sure that they stay concrete. If any of your answers are in a different place than mine, feel free to check any point previous in the video. I'll be sure to point this out as we go forward. So the first one that I decide to define here, and I'll just be going in an order that I find to make sense, is a class. So this top square up here represents our class, our definition, which is then going to become our object. So one is going to be transformed into the other using the constructor. So let's just start with these three first. We have a class, just a definition, that is going to be applied using the constructor starting it, and then different functions on that to define how it's going to move forward, making it the object. So continuing our definition of a class, we have fields where that data is defined to be held, and methods, definitions of the functions that will be used to modify said data in the fields. We also have state, the current state of an object. As it moves along its lifespan, the state will change and be updated as defined by the methods, and this will be its behavior, updating as defined by its class. I hope all your answers were in the right place, and if you felt that my video did not cover all of the topics using this diagram properly, feel free to leave me a comment so that I can update this appropriately.